Good afternoon, it's Lana here from the Schoolhouse for Art for another Schoolhouse for Art conversation. We have lots going on. It's officially summer. I can't actually fathom that it's already June. We've been very, very busy at the Schoolhouse for Art. We've given our website a complete makeover. So it'd be great if you could check it out on schoolhouseforart.com, where it has a list of all of our upcoming workshops, including visiting artists from America, Rebecca Tate and Charles Miano. We've also launched our schedule of events that's happening in Russboroughs this summer. So if you want to go online and check it out, or get in touch if you want any more detail. Since we've gotten to know Russboroughs, I have had the pleasure of joining on several house tours, and every single time I do, I am blown away by the beauty there, by the legacy it leaves, and it paves for art, how important art is there. And then obviously it is so important from the Milltown and the Bite collection having two wings named after it for the collections in the National Gallery of Ireland. Recently, the Russboroughs have restored Vernet's Drawing Room, and I think through chance discoveries, in-depth research and analysis, it gave them the understanding, complete understanding of how the room was presented almost back in the 18th century. So today I am delighted that Pauline, Head of Collections and Conservations in Russboroughs, is going to join me this afternoon to go through a little bit more detail about the Vernet Drawing Room in Russboroughs, and we'll get a little sneak peek of how it's looking. Let me see if I can invite her along, and I look forward to sharing this conversation with you. Hopefully this all works. It's great to see so many people joining, and I'm sure this conversation will be incredibly interesting. Hello. Oh,
Hi,
look at you. Hi, Pauline. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am super.
Good.
You are surrounded by, you look regal sitting there.
I look regal sitting here, but I'm actually sitting on an IKEA stool in one of the world's fanciest rooms.
Yes. Well, I love that.
I'm not allowed to sit on the furniture.
Exactly. You don't want to sit on a pine cone, which I love the subtlety of that in Russboroughs. There's little pine cones left around to remind people not to use the chairs.
Yes. Well, now, we can't take credit for that idea. It is widely used in the National Trust properties in the UK.
Sure. How are you today?
I'm good. Yeah, busy as always, but the sun is shining. Bank holiday weekend. How are you, Lana?
I'm good. Thanks. Yourself and a few key people there in Russboroughs have been just instrumental in welcoming and settling us into Russboroughs there. So thank you for all you're doing for us.
No, listen, we're delighted. Sure, it's a perfect match, really, isn't it?
I think so.
And the Schoolhouse is great, and they're offering you offer really high-end art education, and that's very much a shared space with us. So we're thrilled you're here.
So you are sitting in Vernet's Drawing Room. I had the pleasure back in November, I think you gave me and Neil Condren a sneak peek of that room when Teresa Cudahy, the restoration artist, was doing some painstaking gold leaf application to restore the stucco work there that's on behind you.
Yeah. Now we're now calling it the Vernet Drawing Room. This is the original decorative scheme of this room. I suppose for your listeners who might not know a huge amount about Russborough, Russborough was designed by Richard Castle, Ireland's leading Palladian architect, for a man called Joseph Leeson in the mid-18th century. So this is a really important 18th century interior. And when Joseph Leeson was building this house, like he didn't come from a nobility background, so he didn't have a collection of paintings or furniture to furnish a new country house. So he went on 2 grand tours to Italy to get the appropriate trappings of wealth and nobility. And while he was there, he commissioned the paintings for this room. And evidence that has come to light over time shows that there were 8 paintings by a French landscape painter called Claude Joseph Vernet in this room. So the stucco that you can see now was created especially to house and to show off those 8 Vernet paintings.
I think it's like, hasn't the room sort of evolved over time, and then the team there at Russboroughs decided to bring it back to its sort of original state as after finding all of these things out?
Yeah, hold on, I'm just going to grab something.
The stucco work there behind you, I know it took it was 6 weeks to apply the gold leaf to restore that of the 10 weeks.
Well, it took 6 weeks to apply the gold leaf, but she had weeks, Teresa had weeks and weeks of prep work to do, like repairing cracks, replacing missing elements, sanding old paint drips. What happened between sort of the 1920s and 1952 was that all 8 paintings went missing through one route or another. Some were sold. Anyway, in 1968, when the Bites were living here, you can see this in this little Derrick Hill painting of the Bites sitting in this room.
You might bring that closer. We actually can't see that far away. Let's see. Oh, you can. Yeah, almost see it.
So when the Bites bought the house, they didn't have any of the Vernet paintings for this room, but they obviously had their own incredible art collection. But Alfred Bite recognised the importance of this 18th century interior. So instead of removing the stucco to hang his own artworks, like here you can see Dona Antonia Zarate, instead of removing the stucco, he just resolved to track down the 4 oval paintings and to return them to Russborough. So in 1968, they were found in New York in the collection of a very wealthy American financier. So he bought them, the 4 ovals, and brought them back here. And then just in recent years, we have traced 3 of the other original 4 that were here, bringing to 7. The original paintings were Russborough Provenance, and we have bought an 8th Vernet painting at Bonhams to sort of fill the last gap. It's the same year, the same time of the day. But we do hope the 8th Vernet will turn up in time. I'm just going to put this down.
And I think it's incredible that the Bites did want to pay homage to the collection that was once in that room. Their passion for art and the history of it is it's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. Like, it is interesting, but I think in this particular space, it is because of the importance of this decorative scheme. Like the stucco work in this room is very much a ebullient Baroque style stucco work, and it was completed by a man who is known only as St. Peter's stucador, and he also did the ceiling in our dining room. He's called St. Peter's stucador because he's believed to have been the man who worked on St. Peter's in Drogheda. But like, Russborough is an incredible house, and the calibre of the interiors here are in a league of their own in an Irish context, but even more broadly in, they're up there with the top 18th century interiors in the UK or Europe. So I think it was a recognition of that importance and how integral the paintings were to the room.
I think as well, from having visited Russborough House so often now, and from having the pleasure of doing a few house tours, some of the stories of the travels of the artwork is maybe not. It's so interesting to sort of see where the art went, and then for it to come back where it was at one point is it's quite amazing that it can be tracked and followed, and it's great that that information is out there now.
It is great, but I mean, there's lots and lots of, because we, you know, Russborough as a museum is sort of still in its infancy in lots of ways. And, you know, the bike collection was essentially a private collection. So there's still lots of research and missing information about the provenance of lots of our collection. Like, we've been very lucky with these. But that, you know, this information has come together over the course of the last 10 years. It doesn't come together easily. And sometimes there is an element of luck in it. There is an element of luck. So yeah, like, for instance, we have made 19, I'm getting another thing.
There's so many things to catch your eye in Russborough House. I know every time I go to something, there's a little bit of a light shining on it, so I don't know if you reflect it. Yes, perfect.
Okay,
wow,
cool.
yes.
I have somebody here assisting me, Joanna,
thanks,
from marketing.
Joanna. Hi,
She's
Joanna.
so good.
You're so good.
So these photographs, they're mid-19th century photographs of the interior of Russborough, turned up about 15 years ago. And these have been just incredibly important in terms of research and documentation and giving us a steer on what the room used to look like. So it was from the appearance of these cartouches, to get all the stucco work in these, that we knew that the stucco was originally gilded, or that it was gilded in the mid-19th century. And then there's brown areas, which is quite unusual, or dark areas. So then when we commissioned paint analysis about 10 years ago by a woman called Catherine Hassel, who is a leading expert in this field, Catherine was able to establish that the gilded and copperized stucco work was in fact the original decorative treatment of all the stucco on the flat walls, and that survived from the middle of the 18th century right up until the 1930s, when the family who bought the house, I'd imagine, painted over it because they didn't have the paintings and they had no hope of ever getting them.
And when you kind of did Russborough actively go out to try and restore this room, and to I mean, has it been a project for 10 years in the making?
No, every country house is always interested in acquiring what it can of its original collection, and like particularly in Ireland and the UK. Because of the various things that happened with world wars, then in Ireland in particular, with the, you know, the redistribution of the large landlords' land holdings back through to the tenants in the 20th century, like, these houses lost the source of their wealth, and most of their collections were decimated through sales. In the 20th century, because that's what they had to do to keep the roof on and to keep going. So I mean, if that sounds like I'm going, oh, poor landlords, I'm not. But Lana, I forgot what you asked me. Oh, no, yeah, okay.
It's okay. I think
it wasn't a 10-year plan. So speaking of sales and houses and collections, you can't see this wall here, but there are two small Vernets on the end walls here, which is the window wall. And in fact, the second Earl of Milltown, another Joseph Leeson, had gifted those to Lady Kildare in the latter part of the 18th century, so say around 1890 or whatever. And that's documented in the Killadoon archives. And the Killadoon was the seat of the Kildares. But the Killadoon collection came up for auction a couple of years ago. And when these two Vernets appeared in it, like the Russborough provenance was solid, but at that point we didn't know that there had been 8 Vernets in this room and that these two were framed en suite with the rest. Like, it all just came together. And then because we also have the overmantel painting, which is again original to the Milltown collection, Joseph Leeson bought it in Rome at the Piazza Colonna in 1750. Although it is a 17th century painting, it's earlier. It's a copy of the Triumph of David by Guercino. So when the Killadoon pictures came up for sale, the Apollo Foundation very generously bought them for display at Russborough. So when we discovered they belonged to this room, like, we then had so much of the room, and the stucco painted in white emulsion was never what you would have chosen. So the argument to restore the decorative scheme was just so strong and so compelling. Like, it is the right thing to do. Like, we are in an incredibly lucky position. Like, there are very few rooms from the 18th century that still hold their entire collection. So yes, this was Richard Castle's vision for this drawing room. So it's lovely to have it back as it should be.
It is really kind of breathtaking when you walk in. I mean, you can see it from the image here that we're able to look at, and it's lovely that you're giving us this sneak peek, but it's actually breathtaking when you walk into the room, the level of detail that went into it. You can see how important artwork and beauty was to them when they were designing this space, which is something that it's still so valued to see that now, because you know, you want to really give artists and the work that they do this complete admiration and appreciation, and to see that it was something also shared almost 300 years ago, and witnessing it in its true beauty like this in Russboroughs in the Vernet Drawing Room is spectacular. So well done to you and the team there. I know, having met Teresa Cuddihy, I know how passionately and painstakingly careful and meticulous she was with that room, and obviously under your direction and the rest of the team there. A massive well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Teresa, like that was a huge project for Teresa to take on. Yeah. By herself, but like, she is amazing. Like, her commitment never wavered, and she was here for 3 months, and like, the last bit of work she did was every bit as good as the first. Yeah. Like, she never let her standards slip. Or yeah, it's incredible. We're very, very privileged. The Irish public, visitors are very privileged. You don't get to see rooms like this all the time. Like, Vernet is a really incredible artist. Like, he was one of the leading French landscape painters of the 18th century. He spent nearly 20 years in Rome training. He went over there when he was, I think, 20, and he was there for about 18 years. So, you know, he was heavily influenced by people like Salvador Rosa and Panini. But he became a member of the French Academy in the 1750s after he came back from Rome. And then he got huge, important commissions from the French state. Like, he did an incredible series of paintings of French courts. So he's highly collectible and highly valuable. But also what's interesting is, like, when these were commissioned, like, he was a young enough man. He was in his 30s, I guess. But he was super popular with the Irish and British grand tourists of the day. So there are quite a lot of Vernets in Irish and British country house collections, because he would have gotten a lot of commissions from them. And actually, so much so that he had so many commissions that he had a studio with some artists working for him. So, in fact, the painting you see, the landscape shape painting that you see here behind me, is the Vernet Lacroix, which is held in the same esteem almost as a Vernet, for want of a better way of putting it. Like, Lacroix was his lead studio artist.
It's such an incredible legacy to have in that room, to have them housed there, to have I know 7 of the 8 of the original collection, so we can keep our fingers crossed that the 8th original finds its way back home.
We certainly will. Like, I hope it happens in my lifetime. It may not, but I'm sure it will eventually.
Knowing your hard work and persistence, Pauline, I have no doubt that you will find it.
Thanks, Lana.
But honestly, if anyone has the opportunity or to just make time to go out, that room is spectacular, but every other room in the house is done to the same. You know, it's absolutely beautiful, and the homage it plays to art in Ireland. And I guess it's such a grateful thing to see where art is being so appreciated and adored and championed. And it's something that, you know, it's lovely to see that legacy continue through Russboroughs. So if anyone has the opportunity, I highly recommend going out. We've had so much information that you've shared with us now in 20 minutes. You can imagine what an hour of a house tour, seeing how many rooms are there that you see. There's
a huge house. There are 7 principal rooms on the ground floor, and then upstairs we have 4 bedrooms open. Now, this might not be the forum to talk about this. People always wonder why we have 5 bedrooms closed, but like, it's the 7 principal rooms on the ground floor that house the collection, and, you know, sort of give the most opportunities for storytelling. So I don't want to rush people around the important rooms so that they can look at all the bedrooms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But then I think that you find little absolute treasures. I know there's a sketch from Picasso up in one of the bedrooms.
There is, yeah.
There's a little top hat that one of the dogs used to wear.
Oh yeah. I have the box for that. That came from a hat maker in London, no less.
Yeah. There's there's a lovely insight into their personal life and how
and like, upstairs is very much a bite space, with more personal objects and things.
But it's stunning. So I do recommend that anybody goes out, and it's fantastic that you've given us a sneak peek into the Vernet Drawing Room, and congratulations to the team there for such an amazing achievement.
Thank you very much. It's not 100% finished. On the side of the room you can't see, there's still 2 paintings not back from conservation treatment. So the room will be entirely completed by the end of next week, and then we're having an official launch later in the month.
Fantastic. Well, I know I'm back out in Russboroughs next Friday for the 3-day workshop with Alan Clark. We're doing sculpture out in our studio out there for 3 days, so I'll be sure to pop by and say hello.
Brilliant. Do please. We're always happy to see you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time, and for Joanna, who's behind the camera and doing such amazing camera work and support, who's also been amazing getting all of our information up on your website and the newsletter. It was great to have us included. It was a little celebrated moment for the Schoolhouse for Art. So it's an absolute honour to be associated with the likes of yourselves. So thank you very much, and thanks for your time this morning. This afternoon. wishing everyone in Russboroughs a lovely bank holiday weekend, and to everyone that joined us this morning, thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the chat. I know I certainly did. I love learning all about this through the beautiful space of Russboroughs, and the knowledge that you have, Pauline, astounds me. I don't know. I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone what someone did 300 years ago. So well done. And I
Thank you
look
very
forward
much.
to speaking to you again soon, Pauline.
Talk to you
And I will be back online next week. Thank you so much. Have a
soon.
great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.